I'm Stephen Colbert, and this is my compadre and consigliere, John
Am I the man on the street?
John Stewart. And,
I need to have a pencil I can flip around here.
yes,
John Stewart.
And, running for president.
I gotta be left-handed too.
Hello, I'm Jack Rickard with EVTV. This is The Brain. He's back. How's your day?
Actually, good. It ended up that went and saw some of our friends and clients out there in Southern California for the first couple of days of last week. By Thursday afternoon, my father was admitted to the hospital, and by Monday he had a bypass surgery.
Bypass surgery? Okay.
Yeah, so everything happened quick. Yeah, and it was good. My mom was, you know, I guess it all turned out pretty good that I was there, you know, mostly to chauffeur the distance. Palm Springs is about 20 miles across, and the hospital's on the other side.
How old is this one?
83.
Well, that's non-trivial, but
yeah.
You know, those bypass things are almost like flu shots now.
It's not like it used to be.
It used to be a big deal,
yeah.
And it's they're in and out in what, 3 days, something like that.
Yeah, he'll be probably maybe a couple extra days in the hospital because of his age, but it looks like the surgery went well and everything's looking good. So sorry I missed y'all last week, but I don't feel that bad.
Brain years ago taught me the pleasures of the $30 Havana cigar. And Lou taught me that the $2.40 a pack ANC
the Grenadiers, yeah, the ANC Grenadiers
were not as good as the $30 Havana by about that much.
But not quite as bad as a 30-cent cigar.
And I never have put a $30 cigar in my face ever since. So it's sometimes too soon old and too late smart. You still have some studying to do to get up to Lou's level.
That's right.
Brain.
You know, he's a professional. He's got a doctorate in smart.
He's paying 60 cents a cigar.
That's right.
And they're not quite as good.
That's right.
Off by about a quarter.
Oh, that's right. Off by about a quarter. 85 cents a cigar, maybe.
Yeah. And so, yeah, yours are probably worth 85 cents, but
right.
they're 30 bucks.
That's right.
You get into kind of the marginal cost of things. Good wine is better than bad wine. Good cigars are better than bad cigars. At some point, the fad and the pursuit of the top one inflate the prices beyond all level that they might be better at.
Right. Yeah. The whole category moves up, and it wasn't that good anyway.
What's going on in EV land?
Well, let's see. This week, been scrounging around for stuff. I mean, one of the things, I guess, that maybe people, I'm sure if you've been out there on the web, people know, I guess that Tesla had unveiled the Model X a couple of days ago. I guess it's going to have two motors, one for the front and one for the rear, for the all-wheel drive. Some gull-wing doors. There is actually a 27-minute video on Vimeo that they are supporting out there that maybe we can give a link or something to, but it's 27 minutes.
Now let's steal some of it and put it up here.
All right.
Let's take a look.
Okay.
We're just getting to be regular video pirates.
Yeah. Well,
we're touting their car, you know, what are they going to do, complain?
Yeah, no, it's...
What are they wanting for this thing?
You know, they're saying the same price as the S. So it would be in, what, the $70,000, maybe a little more range.
Now, this was supposed to be the car for the rest of us. Cheaper. That's not what happened.
I don't think so. It doesn't sound like it, not from that presentation.
There's some realities in the cost of these cars and the batteries and the components. This is what I've been saying for several years. It kind of defines the process of getting there. And I think the best process for us is to enable and aid and abet individuals worldwide to go in their garage and make their own damn electric car.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
I applaud the Tesla end of that too.
Absolutely. That's the end that a manufacturer should be in. Is the upper end.
Yeah, they're attacking the very nature of automobile manufacturing, retailing. Not just the car,
right. Just the
but
distribution
how you
channel.
design cars, how you distribute cars, how you sell cars, and they're doing it in a yeoman ship-shape fashion, circa San Jose, 2012.
Yeah, I think they even did another launch of one of their rockets for SpaceX. I mean, they're doing a lot of things correct.
If you want to sit in Michigan and pray the good old days come back, it ain't happening, guys.
You're gonna need knee pads.
It's true that the Burlington Northern Railroad had everything necessary to invent the DC-3. There's a reason they did.
Yeah, that's right. They weren't interested in flying.
The obvious people with the training, the engineering talent, the equipment, the technology, the science, the knowledge, and the infrastructure to bring us the internet was American Telephone and Telegraph. No, but zero probability of that happening.
Yeah.
It can't happen.
They wanted to.
It's not, they're not
built for it.
able to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
General Motors cannot invent the electric car. Their effort burns gasoline.
Yes, it does.
These are just simply truisms of the way technology deploys. Right now, they're falling by the wayside in droves. Fisker ceased operations,
That's what you told
laid
me.
off their employees this week. Huge impacts for us on batteries, but across the board. Coda has introduced their car. They keep announcing its availability. They still haven't had anybody order one.
Oh boy.
But they keep announcing that you could now have one.
now have one.
Nobody cares. They're going to go down hard. Like Think, Interdel in bankruptcy.
Yeah.
A123's threatened and down in the $2 level on their stock. Fisker walking dead. Coda not likely. Think dead.
Yeah.
Phoenix Motor Cart dead.
Yeah.
Aptera dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Zap Miles dead.
Yeah, I'm dead. Yeah. Yeah.
Tesla is the most shorted stock on the NASDAQ at 43%.
Really? Oh man.
And when they get stampeded,
Yes.
it's gonna be huge.
It's
Because with all those dead, I think Tesla's gonna make it great.
I think so too. Yeah.
Are they is everybody gonna storm Tesla and fight to give them their $70,000? No, they're gonna have to market those cars to well-heeled individuals who are early adopters, who are willing to pay the premium to have the latest and greatest, and I believe they will get it with a Tesla. I think Tesla's going to build a better electric car than you and I can, Ray.
Oh, I do. I think they already are. And
Now, I'm not going to quit driving mine.
no, right? Because we built ours. There's a certain satisfaction in building your own car.
Right.
You know, there really is.
Elon Musk must be partying like a rock star.
I think he is. Yeah. I mean, we had, we were talking about technology last night. We had, 31 guys in here from our local hot rod group that actually we couldn't get out of here. Usually their meeting ends about 7:30 or 8. At 10:30 they finally
Yeah, and I thought you had mentioned something about this to my wife.
Oh, I didn't tell mine either.
Yeah, I'm in deep caca. Thank you. We had a ball last night with the local hot rod group. It had 30 guys.
Yeah, 30 guys. Sure.
And they got a pizza per guy.
They did a pizza per guy.
And I was talking to one, what's his name, Farmer?
Something, I think, yeah.
And he's got 65 grand in his current hot rod.
His hot rod, yeah, yeah.
And he says, so how much to make one of these electric? I said, oh, it's $16,000, $18,000 worth of components usually. It can be more, but you can do them for $16,000. Oh, well, hell, I wouldn't want to spend that. How much do you have in your current bill? Well, 65.
Yeah, and it's not done. No paint, no interior.
My theory is the hot rod guys are going to discover this.
Let them think they
and
are,
the junky little electric car guys,
they're
out.
Yeah, they're out. Yeah. For right now, they're out.
And they're going to come storming. They're wanting something new.
Yeah.
These guys are all in their 50s and 60s. They've all done 6 builds.
Yeah,
One guy had 3 Corvettes.
Yeah, right.
He's bored blind.
Yeah, he's just bored
Who
to death.
needs 3 Corvettes?
Even if they're different years, there's still
Right.
3 Corvettes. Only drive one at a time.
We had a 90, a 2000, and a 2005 Corvette.
Yeah.
You know, what's that about?
Yeah, get rid of one of those buildings.
He's bored blind. He wants an electric car. And, so we talked to him till 10 o'clock last night.
Yeah.
What else you got? Yeah, well,
Yeah, we got a little video that's up on
We're
video.
getting like video pirates. We're just grabbing stuff.
You know, I mean, A123, as we talk about them a lot, we're, you know, using their cells in some projects. They're getting some, you know, they keep getting deals. Someone else invests another 25 million bucks in them. One of the guys does the trucks. I think Vista. Or
Via. That is Bob Lutz is
yes, that's right.
At least a figurehead.
That's right.
Has gone from Chevrolet to Via. They're doing kind of an interesting work on like I'm thinking a Ford F-150 or Chevy.
Got to be a Chevy. Maybe a Chevy if it's Lutz. He might have
Chevy pickup truck.
Yeah, like
it's kind of like our Cadillac Escalade. Thing, but a little more modestly. I think they're trying to bring those in at 75 grand or something. Okay. You have a big, brawny pickup truck that's electric, and they've got a couple other things they're working on. And yeah, they've signed on with it. A123 has customers. They have multiple customers. They're not solely dependent on Fisker, but these things kind of come in, and you have an agreement, and
who knows what happens?
It's blue sky.
Right,
It's they need batteries in 11 months.
Right, and you don't really know how many.
And
they tell you millions.
20 Brazilian, but it might be 200.
Right, it might be one.
And well, Fisker was going to sell 15,000 cars in 2011. They sold 238, and they're out of production now.
Yeah, I know, man.
Now, hey, welcome to the real world.
Yeah, that's right.
That's they didn't make the case really. It was not entirely about Miss Milestone. It was not entirely about. It's entirely about an electric car that runs on gasoline, gets 20 miles per gallon, and costs $106,000.
Yeah, it's tough when you're in Hollywood, and that was kind of their market to be green. If you're blowing V8 exhaust out your car.
Exactly, and so. The best laid plans of mice and men after glide.
I think I only have one more thing, which is kind of funny. I picked up on Bloomberg. The EU has rejected animal sounds for electric cars.
Really?
So you know how you're supposed to have some.
I was going to do the move.
I'm sorry. Well, that's only the EU. We may be okay. Yeah, it may take time for it to cross the pond. But the EU says won't be allowed animal noises or musical sounds to help people hear them in traffic. So if we're in England, we're not going to hear any mooing coming out of our electric cars.
So yeah, Tesla's the #1 shorted stock, 43% of their float.
It's amazing.
And they're trading above $30 today. They were up to 32.
32, yeah.
Somehow the Model X, and I suppose it not being a mass market vehicle, has kind of got them, down around $30 this morning.
But that's okay, heck.
But no, they're up from a year ago. I tell you, Elon Musk has left a trail of broken bodies of those that have bet against him on these matters in the past through PayPal and
SpaceX
and so forth. So I would not bet against him. The 27-minute video. I mean, you saw what's his name, Bob from Apple.
Oh yeah, right.
Introduced Governor Jerry Brown saying, "Hey, basically what I'm saying, you got to think new. It's not coming back. It's not the old ways. No. You have to innovate."
Yep, exactly.
So I think it's exciting. Speaking of A123 and Fisker and a host of other things, we continue my obsession. And it's really kind of got us stalled out around here. We're working on the Escalade, but not in a big way.
We can't even put our new end mill together.
I keep testing batteries and modules. I'm obsessing on these MD1HD 20 amp hour pouch cells from A123 and using them to do something. Let's take a look at why and my latest adventures in
Adventures in battery making.
A123 battery making.
Adventures in battery
Pretty
making.
soon we're going to be stirring the slurry and spreading it on the foil.
Yeah, that's right. We're gonna
I
find
shouldn't get drawn.
insurance.
It's actually threatening the future of our show. We're going to start losing viewers while I'm playing with batteries that nobody cares about.
You guys love batteries though, right? That's some of our best shows. What we hear feedback, it's the same guy.
Yeah, I've got a new module that's kind of an old concept.
Okay.
And let's take a look and see what we got.
This episode of EVTV is brought to you by the Winston Battery Company Limited, makers of high-capacity lithium-yttrium rare earth cells, including the popular 160 amp-hour model featuring cycle lives in excess of 5,000 cycles when discharged to 70%, the longest useful working life of any available battery of any chemistry. A leading battery technology scientist, inventor, and entrepreneur since 1995, Mr. Winston Chung envisions a new world of clean electric power for the dawn of a new era of electric vehicles. For your next electric vehicle design project, contact Winston Battery Limited. Energy for a bright future. I'm going to risk the very distinct possibility that our viewers may tire of our ongoing obsession with the A123 pouch cell that we've been playing with, trying to make a module of. We do continue to obsess on it, and we have some reasons. What would they be? Number one, we see a very real need in our viewership for a lower priced, perhaps lower range option to build a full-powered electric car that is operationally complete. And the high power output of these cells for their energy density would lead us to the possibility of a pack that did a 40 or 50 mile range but put out sufficient, and that's a function of the energy density of the cells, their weight and volume and the amount of energy they can store, as opposed to the amount of power that they put out, which would allow you to use full-size motors, controllers, 1,000 amp controllers and motors to get full acceleration from a car for abbreviated distances. And of course that leaves open the door to adding more batteries for more range, but gives an option perhaps in the $4,000 to $5,000 range that for some of our viewers who might want to consider a build but are daunted by the concept of $8,000 or $9,000 or $10,000 worth of batteries. This would be a gray area, middle ground between the lead acid or absorbed glass mat type battery and the lithium, where you get the advantages of the long cycle life of the lithium, the lightweight, but at the same time kind of split the difference between the $2,500, $3,000 level for lead acid batteries and the $10,000 for the lithium. A middle ground, so to speak, where your trade-off is range, but performance, longevity, life cycle are all exactly identical to the higher expenditure. Reason number two for our ongoing obsession with the A123 cells. Well, I'm sort of miffed that A123 has dissed us as a community. But worse, they have received a $249 million deposit of my tax dollars to build a production facility to create American jobs in Michigan to create these battery cells. in a scam that should probably carry long prison sentences. These cells are actually made in Korea. They're printed made in the USA, and we're buying them from the Chinese. And it would appear that A123 has got some showcase employees in Livonia, where they assemble them into deluxe packs, and a handful of employees, nowhere near the 5,000 they promised. And indeed, they've recently laid off 125 employees because of the situation with Fisker. Now, by my mathematics, that will save them $6.5 million a year, while they're sitting on a $249 million grant by the Department of Energy of our tax dollars. They are keeping the money, laying off the workers, which wouldn't amount to squat in the scheme of their $249 million, and there were never any U.S. jobs. This has been farmed out to Asia anyway. So I've really kind of got a boner about A123. But more to the point and more practically, this week Fisker has announced that they are at a loggerheads with the Department of Energy over their $549 million or $469 million, I can't remember, a huge number of dollars from the Department of Energy for their car. They have missed certain milestones, and so they have ceased production of the Fisker automobile, which nobody was buying, and they had problems with anyway. As predicted here over a year ago, their DOA. And they are laying off employees. Now, A123 had invested $30 million, conceivably you could say either IPO money, their investors, or public dollars in Fisker to persuade them that A123 was the very best battery cell available. And so they do have some other customers, nothing really current or in any big quantities. And so what I believe is happening, and I'm making this up whole cloth, it's almost impossible to decipher, is that they have reneged on some of their contractual obligations for quantities of cells from Asia, making some of the Asian factories feel justified in then backdooring. These are not seconds. A number of people who are trying to sell batteries here in the U.S. have issued dire warnings that these batteries, I've heard everything, they need a 500-pound pressure on the pouches, that they're seconds, that they're dangerous seconds, that they're faulty cells. We have tested them quite thoroughly. They meet pretty much the A123 spec in American fashion, just shy of it. They're quite consistent from cell to cell across several different orders, and we believe these to be genuine A123 made in USA cells, and we know they're made in USA because that's printed on them, even though they come from Korea, and we are obtaining them from China. Why else? So Fisker has laid off employees, ceased production, and this puts additional pressure on A123. As a result, this week, Mr. Nathan Knoppenberger from Team Illuminati, who you might remember, they brought their X-Prize entry to the Electric Vehicle Conversion Convention we held here last September, and he received yesterday a quote for these cells at $17.40 per cell, FOB China. There is some shipping involved. It's more modest than you might imagine. I think 300 cells is $600 or $700. But we are now at sub $1 amp hour price, actually putting these at a bit of an advantage over our prismatic cells. The China Aviation lithium battery cells are pretty much stuck at $1.20. The Winston Battery Company, and I have assurances from Maria now that the Balcon thing, now that that has played out as we predicted, that she will take care of anyone wanting to order Winston batteries, and they can ship them and can obtain them. So you can use the email address that's in their ad, Winston888 at winstonbatterycompany.com, to order them. But they're about $1.05. Calb is about $1.20, and so these are now $17.40 for cells that we are achieving 19 and 19.5 amp hours on now. And so that is kind of a penetrating and very current issue. I had predicted the price would drop. The first ones we bought were at $35. The second set was at $20. They're at $17.40 each and dropping like a stone. These will put out, we have tested definitively 23C from a series of 3 of these cells, 23 times their rated 20 amp hours, or 475 amperes from a single cell. And that means that 6 cells can do an almost unimaginable 2,750 amps out of 6 of these in parallel. This is a huge boon for drag racing or any kind of racing situation, but we think more importantly offers an opportunity to make lightweight, less expensive packages, you know, for cars and get them running, even though there's no advantage in energy density here and there's no free ride. You wind up with a car that does 25 or 30 miles per charge, perhaps 40. That's not good, but it is rolling, and you get the advantages of the long cycle life that these provide if we can just put them in a module that can survive in a car. Now that's a little problematical. I'm not a packaging engineer. I don't even approve of being in the area where packaging engineers hang out. I'm not chums with packaging engineers. They're boring people who have a tedious job and a difficult one, and that is absolutely crucial to the productization of anything. But I have none of these skills. I can tell you, if you let this tab flex back and forth, wiggling in a car, even for 3 months, it's going to break off and cause a problem. So it has to be isolated. Does it have to be compressed? No, this is a myth. It only has to be compressed if it swells, and I have shown you exactly how to do that with some of our urethane to create explosive swelling if you overcharge or over-discharge the cells. We've had some setbacks and some failures in my clumsy packaging efforts, and it's caused us to go back to ground zero. I'm sure any number of our viewers can improve on this over what I can do. What I have done this week is actually go back to my roots. Here is a China Aviation Lithium Battery Company, a 180 amp hour cell. Here is my latest prototype cell. It's quite similar. We have 2 terminals at the top, positive and negative. We have the same aeration ribs, although on one side we don't have them. It's slightly shorter, it's slightly narrower, and it's nominally 120 amp hours. This particular cell measured out at 117.2. And so we're getting good output of these cells now. I want to show you how we're making these a little bit. A Mr. Doug Ingraham is one of our viewers and active on the blog, corrected me this week, and he's quite correct in that in a through bolt situation that you have with the our deal here, you need a Nordlock washer on each side. So let me disassemble and show you our terminal that I have gone to for these cells. We've made a couple of improvements. One of them was per Doug's instruction, to put a Nord-Lock under the nut and also under the bolt head. And if you want to keep these from coming loose. And so we have done that. And so we have Nord-Locks under our bolt heads and under our thing. We have gone to a little different stock. Our terminals were adequate, perhaps slightly overbuilt. We had been using some 1/4 by 1/2 sidebars and some 3/4 by 1/2 main terminal stock. I have reduced this to the 3/4 by 3/8, and this to 3/8 by 1/8. This is aluminum stock you can order from McMaster Car again. And let's take 6 of these cells and see if I can assemble this. We want to remove the stickers. As you can see, let's get a close-up of the writing on these. These are A123s. They're marked Made in USA. This one and the next one have an A2 marking in the center. And we've seen various markings. We have not been able to associate that with particular performance in any cogent fashion. We have a serial number sticker, which is kind of your indication that it's new. You can't really use the cell with that sticker on there, so I'm going to peel that off. It matches a serial number printed between the 2 tabs. This is your negative or copper anode tab, and this is the aluminum positive cathode tab. And so that's that. We'll take the next one, peel that tab off. The serial number sticker. And there's number 3. I'm going to use 6 of these cells for our battery, making nominally a 120 amp hour cell that would be capable of putting out 2,750 amps, but again, has but 120 amp hours of energy in it. So there's no attempt at a free lunch here. We're just going to build a smaller pack for a shorter range, but we want full power for anything up to and including drag racing. Let's take 3 of our cells and stand them up here. And I'm going to let me show you. I'll disassemble this. This is, of course, our terminal bolt and Nord-Lock washer that is simply threaded into the aluminum. We have run the aluminum on a wire brush so that we can clearly see the oxidation is removed. And now I have drilled holes. Let's make sure that I'm getting this kind of on the right way. And we'll take our bolts with the Nord-Locks on them. And that looks like a fit. I'm going to pick up my 3 cells, go to the positive terminal, and I've got those holes drilled where they go on either side of the tabs. And we can take our terminal and sandwich those. And now I'm going to take the other 3 tabs and put those on the other side carefully. The only admonition here is to get them the polarity right and don't let anything bridge to this other side. And so I've got the tabs sticking up fully. I'm going to put my other compression bar on there. See if that goes on correctly. That doesn't look right. Let's turn that around a little bit See if that goes on that way. Maybe not. How about this way? Because I don't have the holes accurately machined, they do have kind of a handedness to them. So, okay, that goes on pretty good. I'm going to put on a Nord-Lock washer and a nut. And another Nord-Lock washer and a nut. And basically I've got the terminal there, and I've got it where it'll slide up and down on these tabs at the moment. But holding them there, they'll kind of hold my batteries up. Let's go disassemble our other terminal. I'm going to try to keep my plates and so forth lined up properly this time. It's not such a mystery when I put it together. We'll put our terminal block in the middle of our tabs. Feed that through. Pick that up just the way I laid it down, and it should pop right on there. Our Nord-Lock and our nut. Another Nord-Lock and another nut. So, Doug, I have Nord-Locks under both the bolt head and the nut now. And what I'm going to do is take this left terminal and slide it up to where my tabs simply meet at the top. And I'm going to take a nut driver and tighten this down a little bit. Now, why am I doing this? Well, I don't want the tabs sticking out the top too much anyway. But the higher up I get them, the more out on the end, the more room I've got along the tabs to spread the distance of the pouches. And so the less of a strain there is on them. Now let's move this one up, kind of, again, to where they're just sort of flush with the top. A little bit sticking up. Tighten down one side, and again check my top alignment and tighten up the other. And at this point, my module's sitting here pretty good. I'm going to put a nut driver on the other side. We're going to mow down on her, and I want these as tight as I can get them. This 1/8 by 3/8 is going to bend a little bit around those tabs, but I think it's sufficient strength to make good contact with our terminals, even though there's no holes through the terminals. I can clamp these down pretty tight, and they're not really going to come loose. I can pick this up. And so this is my basic battery module now. And we put our Nord-Locks in our threaded holes in the top and the M8 bolt that we're very accustomed to with these regular cells, which I can lose now. And this is basically what goes inside this. Now this pretty black cell is made out of smooth cast onyx fast black liquid plastic. This is a urethane cast urethane plastic, and it's pretty dangerous and expensive. I think a set of this is about $100. We might be able to do 4 or 5 cells out of you know, the 7.5 pound set here, a half gallon of each of the 2 parts that you need. You mix them in equal parts. They have a 2.5 minute pot life. So if you're not ready to pour when you mix them, you're going to wind up with a cup full of stuff that turns hard quick. And it's actually about a 10-minute demold time. Now, how did I get this to look like this other cell? Well, that's another story. That is some smooth-on platinum silicone rubber that I simply put this battery in a box and filled it up, the box, with this silicone rubber compound, mold compound, and so the battery was in there, and after it set up, which took 16 hours, I think, cure time, then I popped the battery out of the mold, and there I have it. So now, our objective is to pour this battery into our mold using the urethane resin, and that'll make it somewhat like this one, and give it a hardy case that will isolate all movement of the pouches, provide some compression, and allow us to deal with it as if it was a prismatic battery. Here are some little bitty pieces, I don't know if you can see this, of high molecular weight polyurethane. And what I do with this is I'm going to set, probably 4 of them in my mold on the raised rib parts. And then I am going to set my battery module in the mold on top of that. And that gives me just a little bit of space between the pouches and my mold to fill with the material. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom, just of a couple of the cells, just to keep them, if I stand this up, off of the very bottom of the mold. And then I'm going to take 3 or 4 of these little things and set them on top. And these are going to be flaws in my cell, but I can live with it. And I'm going to kind of arrange my cell to where it's bat centered in the mold. The back of the mold, where I poured it in the box, was kind of thin, and so to brace it up, I'm going to slide this piece of polycarbonate behind it and lined up to where it doesn't project out the bottom. Again, I've kind of got this sliding around, and I'm going to take another piece of polycarbonate and lay across the top, right on my deal. I don't think I'm really compressing my battery very much. It's kind of slipped out of position too. Let's put a couple more of these little deals in here. See what that does. I'm just trying to hold that in position. That'll work there. Now that I have that together, let's take a C-clamp or two I'm gonna slide this off the table just a hair where I can get my C-clamp on both pieces of polycarbonate. And I'm not going to squeeze it very hard. I'm just going to squeeze it a little bit for now. Let's go over here. See if I can get this one. Again, on both pieces of polycarbonate. And again, light pressure, but we do want to seal off using the silicone rubber to where no of our material gets out. Let's see if I can stand this up now. Well, I lost a couple pieces of plastic that fell down to the bottom. That's not really a crime at this point. And I'm going to put this at the top. Again, we are casting a cell. We're not building a piano. I'm going to tighten that up just a little bit. Let me put this over here. My clamp just barely fits. Should invest in some bigger clamps, perhaps. There we go over it. And I'll clamp that down. I don't really want to distort this or compress my rubber much, but I do want a good seal on that polycarbonate all the way around with my clamps. And there you can see our mold. If only we had a funnel. By golly, here is a little funnel, just like the Tin Man. In Oz, I've got here some measuring cups. Let's see if I can measure any of this with any kind of accuracy. I'm going to put 8 ounces of Part B in this cup. Let's see if I can get 8 ounces of Part A. In this one. And that looks like 8 ounces of each. You want to keep this capped. It does not have much of a shelf life in oxygen. And here are our 2 parts. We have a 3rd cup. They do this so you measure accurately. I've done it in 1 cup and it's worked. And let's put our Part B and our Part A in the cup to make 16 ounces. You may start the clock at any time, and we have a blowout here. I have to get this back on and get that mixed and in there before my 2.5 minutes goes by, or we'll have a very serious situation. And so there we are. I'm going to take a piece of high molecular weight polyurethane. You can use a paint stir stick, but nothing sticks to this stuff. So when I stir this up with this, when this cures, it will make a film on my stick. However, it breaks off real easy because of the high molecular weight polyurethane. Let's pour this in our mold, and we need to get a giddy up on, because we have 2.5 minutes from when we combine those until they don't pour at all. Are we getting it in our mold? Well, I've kind of spilled it on the top looking. Let's see what we have going on here. So that's 16 ounces. We seem to be doing pretty well. And so what I'm going to do is go back. Are we about halfway?
Yeah.
Let's call it 10 ounces this time of each. And this stuff is a god-awful mess if you mess this up. I'm going to put 10 ounces of each, and so we're at 20 ounces total, plus 16, 36 ounces is about what we're looking at here, it looks like. Let's put that in there and stir it up again real good. You want to mix this as thoroughly as possible, but be mindful of your pot life. It's 2 1/2 minutes, and then you turn into a pumpkin. You make Cinderella look like no problem. And let's pour this in here. And why do we want to be able to see through the polycarbonate? Is that for good video? Actually, I want to be able to pour this right up to the top of my terminals. And as you can see, with 36 ounces on this pour, we're not there yet. But I'm not lacking very much. Let's do about 4 ounces of each and see how that goes. If I can find 4 ounces on this. That looks like 4. Now you see why we use different cups is because then it doesn't set up very quick in those cups, and I can keep using them to measure. There's 4. There's 4. Let's put them both in here. And so we're right at about 40 ounces. And I should have known that from the last pour, but I forgot. And we want to pour this until it gets up almost to the top of our terminals. Would you believe I'm short again, Brian? I did this in one pour one day, but now suddenly I cannot hit it. Four. Let's recap them. Into our mixing cup. Stir, stir, stir. And now we're coming up. Oh, now I've gone too far. No, it may be just about right. Once it fills in the middle, I think that that's going to be right at the top of my terminals. And I'm left with just a little bit in here, which you'll see why that's an issue. It dries out pretty good. And so now we have probably 10 minutes until this sets up. Now it does get some temperature. Some heat is given off as this cures, but it kind of flash cures. This mold and resin will set up probably in 10 minutes. And you'll see how fast that is. I'm going to clean up my hands. I'll be right back.
NetGain Controls introduces the new Warp Drive Industrial Controller. The Industrial is designed to handle a maximum of 1400 amps and up to a 360 volt nominal battery pack. The unit's rugged design looks and works great in the automotive environment while protecting it from the elements. In addition to higher continuous currents than the classic Warp Drive controller, the Industrial comes with several major enhancements. Liquid cooling is available and uses leak-free and rugged AN fittings. The Industrial controller has complete isolation on both throttle channels, giving the highest possible immunity from situations that might affect the electrical throttle input. High voltage connections are fully protected underneath the sealed cover. Voltage leaks between vehicle chassis and a battery pack are detected, alerting the user to potential safety problems. Controller settings can be completely customized using the NetGain Controls interface module, which can also log data to an onboard SD card. The controller weighs in at 25 pounds. Visit www.ngcontrols.com to order your Warp Drive Industrial Controller now.
Well, here we are. We're starting to set up a little bit. It's been about 10 minutes. I'm going to start pulling my clamps and see if anything terrible happens. And we will pull this clamp as well as this one. I'm going to set these off camera here. Remove these two. My backing plate we can set out on the floor. This is our front. We'll set it down on the floor. Let me feel our thing. Oh, it's very warm, very hot. I'm going to give that a few seconds before we peel it off. The cleanup that I'm using here to clean my hands is acetone. Acetone is a fairly obnoxious solvent, but it works good to get this off of you to the degree anything can. It's this stuff stains everything. It's quite sticky, but it doesn't stick to smooth surfaces, which is why you can do this. With the platinum silicon rubber molds, we don't even need to use a release agent. It's not a very complicated mold, and so we don't even need a release agent. This silicon rubber is capable of holding enormous detail. And so you can use this, artists use it, they'll do a little figurine and then they'll make a mold of it and they can simply reproduce it and sell them, numbers of them, copies if you will. How else would we use that? Well, let's say that we were restoring a 1953 Studebaker pickup truck, and it has two taillight lenses, but one of them is missing. And they're identical, and we have one. So probably it's kind of cloudy and not really new looking. I would probably get some of this urethane or maybe even an epoxy that was clear, use some of this RTV Platinum silicone rubber and create a mold using my existing taillight lens. And then I would remove the existing taillight lens, mix me up some clear or some amber or some red tinted urethane, and pour it in the mold, and within 10 minutes I can pop out a exactly identical rear turn signal light or brake light lens. In fact, I could make 2 of them, keep the original as an original, and use my 2 that I made from the form on the truck. And you'd be very hard pressed to tell that it was not one of the original ones, because it would pick up every detail. You can use, I mean, you get the hair on a sculptor, the hair on a kid's thing. Some people will use the silicone rubber to cast their own hands, for example. And they simply fill up a bucket with a silicone rubber, put their hand in it when it dries, and you need something that dries a little faster than this that we used. It's called the Life Cast. It's very easy on the skin and sets up very quickly. And then that lets you, you could fill that mold with urethane, and you would have an exact duplicate of your hands. I don't know why you would want something like that. I suppose it's a gift for your children or something who might want such a thing. So it's used a lot in arts and crafts. They're a little pricey for our purposes, frankly. However, if we break this mold away from the sides a little bit, and we can reach in and work this loose. They're quite warm, all of it. And let's simply flip it over and see if it will demold in the 10 minutes given. And there we are. And here is our new battery. Notice a couple of imperfections where we had laid the little things to give a standoff, but that's a small price to pay to have a known thickness of the material. And here is our battery cell, and it's a little taller than the other one, so we need to work on our procedure here. I had extended these to the very tops of the tabs. These, I had the tabs a little bent over, so they're kind of beaten down. But depends on what size cell you want. We need to get to where we can cast these at exactly this thing. I should put a mark here or something where we're going to fill to. And but that's the basic process. I think in doing it a number of times, we could get to where we were making fairly consistent size cells, and we're not limited to this. I could make another mold and use a couple of these batteries and stack them in the box, again sort of raised off the bottom of the box where the silicone rubber fills in underneath. It gives me a backing. And here's my spill and my filler tube that I put in there, and you can just kind of work this off of here. And here's a piece of plastic that's curing, and so you can see here is my high molecular weight polyurethane. It just sort of peels off of there, and I've got a clean stir stick again, because high molecular weight polyurethane simply won't let this stick very well. And indeed, at some point, we're a little early yet now, I can actually pull all the stuff out of the cup, and it'll come right out, and we'll be left with a clean cup too. And so I like this material. It's somewhat flexible, but it eventually cures quite hard. It's quite durable, and we get, if anything, a more durable cell than even our Chinese prismatics. The heat and the pressure, we have tested this cell several times, and we're going to several more, but so far we simply are not having any problems with like we did with our 40 volt cell, and probably because we have no differences in the capacities and state of charge, and can deal with that at the cell level like we do all our prismatics. We can do a bottom balance on them, and we should be able to deal with them as a pack. We'll learn more about that later after we have some cells. We're going to reorder several hundred more cells and continue the process because I find them very interesting. As I say, combination of what's happening with Fisker and A123, the backdoor leakage of these cells, the assertion by Mervyn and Ron Adamowicz has cited this several times because he's selling Hayen cells, and this is a fairly disruptive development in the EV community, that suddenly we have some inexpensive, very high power cells available. Another reason we're interested in these cells, and not a big deal, but you may recall, some of you, that a year ago we featured on our blog a video with a presentation made to the Carnegie Mellon EV Club by one of the resident professors there, Dr. Jay Whitaker. Dr. Whitaker has got many years of experience with lithium-ion cells with the NASA Jet Propulsion Lab. He actually is the founder of a company who is developing a grid battery. I think it's sodium battery. It's not got a sufficient energy density to be of interest for electric vehicles, but it's very inexpensive, environmentally benign, and very long cycle lives, which could be ideal for grid power applications. So he knows quite a bit about batteries, and the EV Club there was quizzing him, and one of the reasons we cited this was he's very adamant that not only would EV enthusiasts be in over their heads even playing with battery management systems, but ultimately all the OEMs are going to have to abandon them, also simply as a function of cost. In that video presentation, he repeatedly alluded to the A123 chemistry as kind of the standard of merit, the standard by which others should be judged as far as lithium iron phosphate cells went. I found that curious. My experience with their small cylindrical cells used in the DeWalt power tools was not particularly good, but that was mostly a packaging issue. And you know, I had no experience at the time with these larger prismatic A123s. I can tell you in their presentations to the Department of Energy, they cite regular improvements across the board in almost everything. And at this point, I think these 20 amp hour cells are very interesting. It will remain to be seen if we can deal with them as a pack in the car, if they have the same zero drift situation, but chemically there's no reason why they would not. And what I've seen of the cells so far, I can certainly live with. I would say the only anomaly I've noticed is we have to take care in measuring it. Some of our early measurements were off because if you charge the cell and then immediately take it out and start discharging it, and immediately on discharging it, charge it, that it gets a little out of whack for some reason. And I do not understand the methodology there, but I can charge the cell fully and come back the next day and charge it, and it'll take another 5 or 6 amp hours. And then I discharge it and get the full 20 amp hours out of it. Where we were really pushing the voltage, you know, the day before when it was, if you will, hot. And so that's kind of an anomaly with the cell. But I like them. I believe they are heroic in the amount of power that they put out, of course. Weenie, of course, in the amount of energy density, but analogous to our prismatic cells. I probably can't make a cell this way that actually improves on our the energy density with regards to weight and volume and the amount of kilowatt hours that are or watt hours that are contained in here. I probably can't compete with the prismatics. But I can make a 120 amp hour cell like this, and it will put out 2,700 amps of power. They're very high power densities, even though the energy density is no improvement over what we're doing. And so it's kind of an interesting area to play with. It's a matter of getting to where we can produce, or you can produce, a module that could be used safely in a car that would protect those pouches, not have them shorting or breaking off the tabs. They're a little fragile as they come, and so we have to harden them for temperature and mechanically. And so I've kind of come up with a back to basics. Let's do a prismatic. One of the variants that we will probably do for us, since after demonstrating this, we'll probably do a car with a half pack made out of these. But what I would probably go for is I've all long wanted the 200 amp hour capacity in this 180 amp hour form. And in truth, the Calbs are coming in close to 200 amp hours. Let's say we took 11 of these cells instead of 6 and made it twice as thick. And so it would be about that thick, but it would be a 220. That would be attractive to me. It would simply... yeah, something like this. It really wouldn't be twice as thick because we're including resin that we wouldn't need. So thicker than this, but not as thick as that, to do a 220 amp hour cell that would be capable of 5,000, close to 5,000 amps out of one of these cells. I mean, it's an absurd amount of power, but it would dramatically decrease the amount of voltage sag when we were taking 1,000 amps out of it, for example, and thereby increasing in speedster part duh. We go down to 147 volts from 192. Let's say we had 192 volts that went down to 188 while doing 1,000 amps. It's 188 kilowatts instead of 147 with 1,000 amps into the motor. And so that's, 35 kilowatts of power, or 40 horsepower, simply because our batteries don't sag as much. We were doing a 17% sag at 23C. We do about 25% sag in these prismatics at 8C. And so that's the issue. So yes, we are obsessing on A123 cells and modules. I'm threatening the popularity of our show by pursuing this, but I think we may be onto something that allows participation by people that might otherwise feel shut out. I think once they have their car and it's running at 25 or 30 or 40 mile range, and they feel how delightful it is, that they'll call for the other half of the battery pack. On the other hand, there are people that 25 or 30 miles is gads aplenty, and when you have the cycle life advantages of these batteries and the power advantages and the lack of maintenance, it's a no-brainer between that and lead, and it opens up this game to a whole new population of people. We're already hearing from people that are jumping into this, and as if they've been waiting on batteries and are ordering the cells and trying to come up with modules of their own. We hope to report on module developments and people who come up with cunning ways of doing this. I do not hold out that this is the end-all and be-all. This is a step, probably the 5th or 6th we've made in the last couple months to make use of these cells, and we're going to keep after it until we can come up with something that works. This is getting closer for me, and that these cells, it would be slow to make them, but I can see getting these into a car eventually. You're replacing some of this with sweat equity, basically, where these come on a pallet and a wooden crate, and you take them out and put them in a car and drive away. This process is going to involve a little bit more of your time and effort, but I think it's promising. I don't know where the floor of the price is on these cells. They are now making them in Korea. I'm told all the 20 amp hour cells are made in Korea. They had some machines in Livonia to show politicians. The employees in Livonia were taking these cells and assembling them into the packs, the value-added packs that went to the Fisker and to car manufacturers. But the cells themselves were being done in Korea, and I suspect that either A123 is doing this to raise money and actually selling the cells, dumping them in Korea, but more likely they've simply lost control of them. This is part of the whole concept of outsourcing products to Asia. It's a double-edged sword. Yes, you get them less expensively. And yes, you can mark them up and still make them look cheap and trick politicians, departments of energy, and the American public. You can fool some of the people some of the time. But ultimately it comes back to get you in that you're not the one making them. And so you don't have control of it. And Coca-Cola still keeps that recipe secret. So does the Colonel over at Yum Brands. And there's a reason for that. Unfortunately, we're moving our manufacturing to China because of the lower costs, but the price is that you kind of lose control of the product. And so this is a textbook case of that happening. I take some humor, joy, chortle, laughter in that it's happening to A123 because they have been so arrogant and so abusive in their treatment of the EV community. They have no friends here. And while we should be their main disciples, flag wavers, and cheerleaders, pointing to them as the battery of choice, instead we have an adversarial relationship with them, and we're buying their cells from China. And it's to such a point that I had ordered 300 of these, got them at 20 bucks. Nathan up in Illinois with Illuminati quoted the same company, and they gave him a price of $17.40. I asked my representative, who was a different person in the same company, what the current good price was, and he told me $19.20. And I just threw a fit. Hey, I've already ordered from you twice. We've talked about you on TV. You've sold thousands of cells because of our work, And here you are trying to hose me on the price, and he immediately has fallen into apologies and breastfeeding, but he did it. And so it's kind of a game to try to hold the price up on these cells in an act of gravity defiance, where they fall to, where the manufacturer, the real factory, is making them at a profit and selling them to anybody that wants to buy them, and that all stabilizes. I don't know. I don't know what the number is, and I don't have a way of ascertaining it. I can tell you I do not believe these are seconds. I do not believe they are QA rejects. I do not believe they are defectives. They may be graded in some way. There is this mysterious number on the surface of the cell that may indicate something, but they are certainly good operating cells to the best of my ability to test them. In fact, after getting through the early shipment we had, the latest one is simply, they're coming in at spec, 19 to 19.5 amp hours per cell, certainly putting out the current levels that are advertised. We're getting in excess of the spec sheet 20C, and so I believe these are full quality, full metal jacket, A123 20 amp hour pouch cells. And that's my story, and we're always looking for evidence or even rumors, but what we're hearing, negatives, are all from Americans who are trying to sell other batteries and pointing at this, well, you know how it is. Brian called Rich Redmond at Manzanita to try to find out how we turn off his PFC 75 charger. Rich, it does not work the way you think it does, apparently, because we can't get it to fully terminate a charge. This thing is dangerous. But Rich, again, he didn't realize Brian was with EVTV. He was just taking a call and, again, launched into a big, long, well, you know, you're going to lose batteries if you don't have a good battery management system now. It's a mantra, and there's people out there selling nonsense in all directions. It's part of being in a frontier industry. It's Dodge City, 1888. So take your 6-gun with you if you're going to go out into the street, because it's cowboys and Indians, and that's, you know, the way it's going to be for some time, I believe. I think that this it's now becoming apparent. We were quite correct. The OEM thing is going to turn into a backlash. That's going to hurt the movement, actually, and they're going to retrench and try to figure out what to do about it and what an electric car really is. And in the meanwhile, the DIY movement, the build your own car, is going to go forward, and we're going to get better components and better techniques all along the way, and hopefully advance the car. Are we going to wind up being MIT design engineers, you know, at General Motors? No, we're garage hacks who probably drink too much whiskey, smoke too many cigarettes, and shouldn't be allowed with a wrench. But it's kind of developed into a lead follower, get the hell out of the way situation. And I believe that the most important aspect of it is not the technical gains, but the acculturation of our population to be exposed to people with electric cars who drive them successfully. And I think it's a good power statement that you can go to your garage and build your own and drive it away. That's cool. And people will be attracted to that notion, and that will change the view of electric cars strongly over time until we reach a tipping point and do it. I've got some, we have rebuilt my destroyed battery lab. Mark Weisheimer has repaired some of my test equipment. Thank you, Mark. And what a beautiful job. He even cleaned it up. Now all the pots are smooth and oily and everything just works great. But we have some new instrumentation. After a long wait for some solutions there, we have some new instrumentation emerging that I think you're going to find very interesting. And that's going to be the topic of the remainder of today's show. Let's go take a look.
NetGain Motors, home of the Warp, Transwarp, and Impulse motors, introduced the improved Warp 9 motor. The Warp 9 is a 9 1/4 diameter series wound DC motor with a double-ended shaft featuring 26 improvements for 2010. Externally, the terminal studs have been enlarged from 3/8 to 1/2 inch diameter. Bigger is better. On the inside, a larger commutator, new brush composition, and split brush design with heavier springs handle even higher voltages and currents than before. Our new fan increases airflow by almost 50% over typical paddle-style fans, and all this translates into improved performance. For even more performance or larger applications, take a look at NetGain's Warp 11 motor, an 11 3/4 diameter series wound DC motor for even greater torque and power. Since 2002, NetGain Motors has been leading the EV industry with precision, performance, and price. Visit us at go-ev.com. NetGain Motors, warp power to go.
Okay, here we are in the lab. I've got a couple of our batteries strapped up. We've already been melting things. At about 600 amps, our little Tyco Kilovac EVTV-A5 which is one of my good 24 volt contactors I shouldn't even had in here. It's still operational, believe it or not, but it was melting the contactor at about 600 amps. These batteries put out a lot of power. And we're on our test bench, which we have back together, plus some. This is Mark Weisheimer has redone my two Acmes. They're good up to about 10 volts and maybe 200 amps piece. And then this one will do 300 or 400 amps. We put two batteries in series. That gets us enough voltage to actually make those things go. And so I'm melting and burning up as much stuff as I can. Oh my God, look at this. This is awful. That as a pisser. I don't know if that's going to work or not now. Probably not. Brain, I'm just suffering in the battery lab.
Did we smoke something else?
Yeah, we have smoked something else. I doubt it's going to work. Let's crank up our amperes. You know, by golly, it just about works even though it's coming loose from the board. So here's 100 amps. Here's another 100 amps. And so we're smoking along here at 200 amps out of these battery packs. But let's show you some stuff first. I'm going to dial this down to about 30 and this about 30. We are testing these cells for capacity. And we should do that at a half C, but we're also going to do some current testing. This is a device I found here in the shop that had never been out of the box. I told you about this JLD device we were playing with. Here's a JLD 404 intelligent AH meter from Light Object. They don't carry them anymore. I'm trying to get them to carry them again because I had no manual for this, but using the other manuals, I've kind of pieced it together. This will do amp hours, hours and minutes of operation, amperes, and volts all in one device, and it keeps track of amp hours. It's probably somewhere $60 to $100. which is less than half of the price of the Xantrex. And again, we get our large sort of luminescent, electroluminescent LED numerals, which I can actually read. This works with a 75 millivolt shunt, which almost all US shunts are 50 or 100 millivolts. The Asian ones tend to be 75 from China. And I happen to have a 1000 amp shunt here. This is a 500, and it'll work with either one of them. You have to set it up differently. They come with no base. Here's the shunt I'm used to receiving. It has a phenolic base, and you strap your things on. The ones I'm getting from Asia come with nothing. And so I'm kind of putting the bolts in, again, are urethane, and where they have some way to stand up and be insulated. And this shunt, the 1000 amp, is $25 on Light Object. This is about 65 or 70, $100 maybe. And you're reading amp hours, voltage, and amps in one readable display. We're going to try to get them to restock those. I'm going to look on Alibaba and see if I can find this from China. If we do, we'll get 20 or 30 of them in here and sell them, because they're really pretty good. This is counting off ampere hours. We're at 19.8, and it's doing it fairly accurately. This, of course, is our little voltmeter controller that has relays. Actually, this has 2 relays as well that you can use to operate off of power or current. I don't know if it'll work off of amp hours. I'm a little hampered about the manual, but I think so. We're going to keep playing with it. This is what we do when we're discharging by voltage, and I'm at 3.25. I'm measuring one of my 2 cells in series, and this will continue discharging the cell until it gets down to 2.5 volts, at which time it will open the contactor and disconnect my cells from the load. And then if it gets back up to 3.8 volts, it'll again apply it until it is unable to crawl above 2.8 volts. And we will consider that point discharged, even though the spec on these is 2.0 volts. And so I kind of like these. We have another device that's quite interesting, but it's not working very well, and it's coming apart on me. And therein lies the tale. This is the EMW data logger. It has a little Hall effect sensor that is really too small for any of our current collectors. I've made a little bar out of aluminum. Here's the one they send out of copper with holes too small to really do anything with. I've made one out of aluminum and threaded them for our M8s. This little board has a Hall effect sensor. It has 2 incoming lines for your pack voltage, 2 ports for your 12 volts power, which it needs constantly, and switch power to operate, and a Ethernet cable. The Ethernet cable goes to this device here, and this is a little Bluetooth transmitter. And they have done an Android application, which we have downloaded from the internet. And it's probably going to be a little difficult to see. I'll try to do some sort of screen capture to show you this. But it has different gauges, and you use these 2 buttons. It's just connected. Voltage rating, we're going to select 512. Pack size in amp hours, we have entered as 120. Full voltage in 1 volt resolution, 123. A minimal state of charge for empty fuel gauge. So this is your setup parameters, and we cycle through them And we have got this paired up with our Motorola Zoom Android tablet. And we get an indication of current, we get our voltage, watt hours per mile, our amp hours is 120, our voltage, we get temperature, we get our state of charge, and actually we have a whole menu of different gauges, including horsepower and so forth, that you can select from. This is our instrumentation display that I've been wanting to see. Unfortunately, well, there I've got some current coming up. That should be about 150. I'm showing 94. We're coming apart here because this is so fragile that our current sensor is lifting off of the board. This device simply is not ready for prime time. The other problem I've got with this is that it is not very accurate. We were measuring 209.5 amperes on a 200 ampere load that I've got measured pretty carefully with fluke current meters, with my loads. With this device, I know how much current, and I can adjust it perfectly for 200. This device is indicating 209.5. I put in a call to Valery Mitskov of EMW Motorworks, and he has so far not returning the call. I imagine he's revisiting the issue. Accuracy with a Hall effect current sensor is an issue. His board is too fragile, really, even for use. Just laying it here, I've had it come off of the board because my cable is so much heavier than his board is, and that's gonna of necessity be so. And so I don't know exactly how to deal with this other than the way we are. He's going to have to come up with something much more robust physically for us to hook up with, and something more accurate on current. However, I'm captivated by the device in that I can read voltage, current, amp hours, temperature on a Android tablet or an Android phone with this app, which was very easy to download from their website at EM Motorworks and to install on the Motorola. From there, we simply asked the Motorola to pair, plug this in, and entered the code 1234, and we were paired up. You have to initiate this. You have about 10 seconds to do the setup, and after that it moves on. And so to reconfigure it, you simply unplug this, plug it back in, and you can use these buttons, the left one to cycle between parameters and the right one to correct the values. That works pretty well, and it's actually an amazing utility for $249. This is the price of a Xantrex system, and we've got Bluetooth connectivity, a Android application, but wait, there's more. This is designed to plug in to our little Bluetooth box, and these are the pins you use to put up 4 wires. One of them is simply a connection to your 12-volt return. The other 3 are very interesting. One is a switched ground that you can use to turn on an LED. If you take an LED and put 12 volts on the other side of it and hook it up to pin 3 it is, I believe, you get LED whenever your state of charge goes down below whatever value you set, whether that's 20% or 10% or whatever. So it's your fuel low LED. There is a separate output for full, and this is a switch ground. And so you could use this device to indicate when your battery is full and you've fully charged it. And you can do that by, and you set the voltage for that on your setup parameters, and so you could have a light. But remember, this is a switch ground. It'll take up to 50 milliamps, and so you could set that with a relay that disconnects your charger. And so, for example, let's say you were charging to 126 volts, and you set your full light at 129, and you use that full light output to switch a relay that disconnected your charger. Well, it'd be a watchdog when your battery pack reached 129 volts. If your charger had not already terminated, it would disconnect it. And so that's a great utility. And finally, one of the outputs is a pulse width modulated signal indicating state of charge that you can hook up to any modern gas gauge on your panel, supposedly much like the Ziva. But of course the configuration and everything is in the software, and so it's much easier to set up than the Ziva, and it will actually drive the needle on a gas gauge, and you can change the PWM frequency. So if it's a gauge that doesn't operate very well with it, by changing that frequency, you're more likely to find a thing. Negatives on this: the list of gauges. They have a 500 amp gauge, a 1000 amp ampere gauge. They have a centigrade gauge, but they don't have a Fahrenheit gauge. They have different voltages, 0 to 80, 80 to 180. Well, what if I want 60 to 140? These should actually be scalable values you can put in. They have hard images you select from, and they're missing some of the gauges. And so that's a negative. By far, my biggest criticism is two. One, it's not very accurate, and two, our sensor's actually lifting off of the board. I don't know how you would mount this or productize it, put it in a thing to deal with it. He's using too small a sensor anyway. It's a 600 amp Hall effect sensor, but it's only 8 millimeters by 12 millimeters of a hole. You can get them with larger holes. We typically use a bar this size to go through a Hall effect sensor. Here's what he's kind of forcing us to use is this. I did do an aluminum one and put through there so I could bolt down these cables, and just the weight of the cables has destroyed the board. The hardware here is very, very poor, actually. And so that's the problem. But the other effect is a meter should be fairly accurate, and he has a 4.5% inaccuracy on this. And we've been through the documentation, called him. There is an adjustment, by the way, on here to trim up the voltage where it's quite accurate, what you read. I've just got it hooked up to a power supply right now, so we're showing 70 volts, both on this gauge and on this little text display. But it's not real. Let me see if I can put this up where you can see it a little better. How's that? Can you see the screen? And that's the gauges I've got selected and up there right now. They're actually visually stunning and quite good. I love this. The problem, and you can kind of design your whole screen here by selecting from, you click this and you get a little list of gauges that you pick from, and that's how you do it. Let's see. Amp hours, remaining power. There's power, 0 to 120. And so I get a new gauge over here, power, and I can have to unlock this so I can move it. Now let me put power down here and volts here. And now you can see a new display that shows power as well. Combination of your voltage And so, by the way, Valerie, that should be in kilowatts. We don't really need horsepower. That's not power in an electric car. And he's got this entered as horsepower. So I have a little bit of, you know, some suggestions on the software, but it's a beautiful display and it's a beautiful function for $249 to be able to get a Bluetooth connection to a sensor and have this kind of software. Primo, I love it. The product's brand new. The board is too fragile for belief. The Hall effect sensor is simply wrong. It's the wrong size physically, probably the wrong size functionally. 600 amps is probably good for plus or minus 1200 amps. Well, there's no way I can put anything through there that'll handle 1200 amps. We're working on a project for a car. It's going to do a couple of thousand or 2500 amps now. And so, you know, that's a little bit of a problem. But it's simply too fragile for things. So that's my 2 complaints, or 3 would be additional software features and gauges is a request. Second, accuracy, plus or minus 5% is a problem. Hall effect gauges, I've done quite a bit of work with them, and they're temperature sensitive for drift, but he has temperature compensation in there, but it's not cutting it. We're 65 degrees in here right now. This should be dead on, and we're reading 5% high. That's not within a tolerance I would want to have in my electric vehicle. So we need to work on the accuracy there of that sensor. But the big issue is I've already broken your board. The sensor's broken off of it, and it's the first day. And it's simply not physically robust enough to be used the way you've got this set up. And so I can't do a bar big enough to fit on any of our connections here, or any connections I would have on a battery. And so I have to resort to this. Well, then just the weight of the cables has broken the board, and that's no good. So we've got a couple of breakthroughs on instrumentation. I think the EMW EV Android dashboard, the documentation, by the way, is pretty good. Like I say, he doesn't have apparently a calibration procedure or function for the current, and the current is the heart of this system. But the documentation's pretty good. The concept's good. The value is very good. I think at $249 instead of the cheesy little Xantrex display, I actually have something I can use. You have relays you can use with or LEDs, outputs from here, and it'll drive a normal gas gauge. Great concept, pretty well executed. But I think we need some work here on the robustness of the hardware and the accuracy of the current measurement, which is the central issue. After that, we're down to software cases. I'd like to have a gauge that did this, and you'd like to have a gauge that did that. But I like the cafeteria list where you pick what you want and it shows up on the screen, on the Android screen, and being able to glance at this on an Android thing you have on the dash or on the seat next to you. Primo, I love it. We had this concept a year ago, but the hardware was $500 or $1,000 by the time I got done. The software was hard. It's difficult to be accurate at the 10 amp level and at the 1000 amp level. I wound up with 2 of these sensors and having to choose between them based on the level of current to try to be accurate and to do temperature compensation. And so that's a good solution. And this JLD 404 intelligent AH meter, if I can find it again, where it comes from, then we'll try to pursue that. But this is very inexpensive and gives me, and by the way, I've checked its current reading with this 75 millivolt, even a 1000 amp resolution is quite good. In fact, it's superb. The amp hours and the current reading I've compared to some other devices I have in here, and I'm very taken with this at a very low price. Our batteries, frankly, it's anticlimactical. I've been playing with them, but we're getting 115 to 117 and a half amp hours out of our little sets of 6. They're not even getting warm to the touch. I actually, after blowing the contactor a little while ago, shorted one of the cables to this over here. Started to melt a braided strap. The current was so high, and the batteries didn't even get warm. The power output of these cells is immeasurable at this point in these sizes. I can only deal with them as single cells, and then they're able to put out, as we've demonstrated, 475 amperes. We're getting pretty consistent, 114, 117, that sort of thing, amp hours per battery. You know, I don't really have them physically the same size. My casting process is not consistent enough, but I'm very pleased with the temperatures I'm seeing on these things. I've got my little thermal gun here, and I can shoot them. 73 positive terminal is 60, negative terminal 69, and the case is about 69, 70, black case, and that's degrees Fahrenheit, while we're pulling 60 amps out of the cells, or 0.5 C. Like I say, we blew up our contactor right at 600 amps. In fact, I had it dialed in perfectly at 600 amps. Now, of course, Valerie Mitchkov's device was showing much higher than that, and we were exploring that issue when smoke started to come off of my contactor, and so at 600 amps is about what I can do before my equipment starts to melt and give off vapors. And so to be able to measure it, but capacity-wise, we're all over it, fairly consistently so. I'm pleased with the cells. I'm pleased with this format. We may try to do like a 12 volt with the terminals exposed this time on the top, and cast something like that. That'll take quite a bit of that silicone rubber, which that little mold was $172 in platinum silicone mold number 30 from Smooth On to do that. So to do a 12 volt battery, it's probably $300 or $400 worth of silicone rubber. But it might be worth it to set these up in 6P 4S 12 volt batteries that you could put in a car to use as a starter light ignition battery. Some of the hot rod guys were interested in that last night and wanting to know how to get the good battery, and so we may build them one and see how they do it. This is not to run the car down the road. This is just to start a big gasoline engine, and but we may do a 12 volt module that way just to see what it looks like, what size it is. So we continue to experiment with the modules. We continue to test the battery cells, and they're coming out very nicely. Immense amounts of current, obviously fairly consistent and more to spec. We're seeing the 19.5 or 19.6 amp hours. And we're playing with a lot of measurement devices to compare and contrast that. With one cell, we're down to an amp hour. When I get to 6, we're kind of, you know, plus or minus 2 or 3 amp hours across the thing. It starts, I get a little more comfort of what we're really getting out of the cell and what we're really putting into it as far as accuracy. our test equipment. But the cells are testing very well. I like the black color, actually, and they're cool. They're robust. They're about 9 pounds a piece. Now, the 180s that we had are 12.5 pounds. This was on a form of that, but we use a little bit less of the actual size, a little shorter, a little narrower. Of course, we're using the urethane. We're at about 9 pounds. Might be able to put some filler in the urethane and lighten that up a little bit, but we're going to change the nature, consistency, and I really like this black onyx type material. I like the ivory too. You can see this one, we actually filled the whole mold up and it picked up the vent in the top and made one of these. You can see this one, I had one side clamped down too much and not the other one, so it's a little distorted. So we're struggling to be a manufacturing facility and packaging engineers, but we're getting there. And the good news is I've got my test bench back up and running. David Riddle got my blown up power supply back. Mark Weisheimer has got my Acme's back. I actually have another transistor devices still in the box that I'm going to get out, but I can already pull more current than my cables and contactors will quite support. And so we're going to have to be careful with that. So we continue in the battery lab to test the cells. I wanted to show you a little bit about some exciting things we have going with instrumentation. I would say the most exciting is this EMW EV Android dashboard. And it's kind of like the charger that we showed you before. We like it. We had to send it back a couple of times, but they got there with it. And as I understand, it's getting better. They now have a power factor corrected front end for that. And so that's increasing. He's working on a kit to do BMW i3 cars, which is a very popular conversion. But this instrumentation is inspired, other than the hardware, simply kind of chintzy and the accuracy is not very good right now. These are all things that are. This again is packaging issues, and he needs a cal function in the software, so I can calibrate his sensor to something closer to what I want to see on the current levels. Let's wrap that up then. That's what's going on in the lab. We're playing with our H123 modules, which the price of the cells is going down. Their availability is going up. And we continue to play with modules and battery testing. But I wanted to show you some of the instrumentation we're using as well. We're 83 amp hours down. We're still at 3.06 volts on our little thing, which is actually running our contactor. And we've got that automated to the point where our cutoff kind of manages itself, and so it should be consistent from one test to the next. Back to you, Chet.
That's starting to look familiar. I like that. I like that.
So that's
design.
our modules,
Yeah.
and that's our revised, upgraded battery lab and instrumentation thing.
Yes. Yes.
And so that's we're gonna pretty much call that a show, because I don't know what we're having. Probably a couple hours.
Probably a couple hours.
By the time we do the battery module and show them Valery Mitsikov's Bluetooth unit and some of our other options for instrumentation that we're getting some sudden breakthroughs on.
Which is really cool. We needed that.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, a year ago you were working on that, and we just couldn't pursue it anymore. It was just...
I had it working. Yeah. I had some accuracy problems with the Hall effect sensor. I think he is going to have too.
I think so. I think, yeah.
But at some point, how accurate do you have to be?
Just accurate enough.
Right.
You know,
To
it doesn't
get
have
the
to
car
be
home.
precise. Yeah, just accurate.
You know, I get a little bit carried away, but it's sort of like, have you ever gone to the hardware store to buy an outdoor thermometer for the garden?
Yeah, oh yeah.
You ever see the wall full of thermometers?
Yeah, they're all
Yeah, none of them
they're all
match.
different.
So which one is the accurate one?
You can't tell.
Right.
Yeah.
Half
How
the
would you
time,
know?
I don't even buy one because when faced with a wall of them and they're all different temperatures, I don't know which one to buy. And that's kind of getting to be the shape in my lab. I can see too much.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Some
exactly.
of our looking at scans of the 1, 2, 3 cells initially were simply amp hour counters that were a little conservative.
A little conservative.
Now
yeah.
I've got some little more liberal ones, and the
They're
cells
starting to
work
look better. Yeah.
Well, you're down into pretty fine things when you're plus or minus an amp hour on 20 amp hours. That's
5%.
5%.
Yeah. That's
But an amp hour is kind of tough to dig out.
right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's part of the issue. I'm doing a little better now that I'm doing 120 amp hour things.
Right.
Now you can see that it's 115 amp hours. Okay, I got what's going on here. There are 19 amp hour cells.
Right. Right.
And so that's part of it. But it's like going to the hardware store and trying to buy a thermometer. None of them match, so I don't know which one's in. I can't take the pressure, and I go home without the thermometer.
Leave dejected.
I've always liked to put meters on things, and so that's where we're going. We're in a funny time, Brian. I think it's the lull before the storm. I think it's the darkest hour right before dawn. I think there's going to be some big breakthroughs this year in components from some of our component players, in the batteries. In the cars. Probably if I can count on Barack Obama to display the leadership he has thus far in Egypt and Syria and Iran and Iraq and Afghanistan, that we could be talking $11 gasoline by the end of the year.
God.
And I just think that we're at the cusp of something big breaking, and right now it's real quiet, and I kind of have some opportunity to play with goofy things like these batteries.
Yeah, those cells. Yeah, absolutely.
And see where we're going directionally. I don't think I'm alone. I think there's some people pretty high up in General Motors and Nissan and Volkswagen and Tesla.
Yeah,
all
BMW.
kind of
Everybody's looking at stuff.
doing the same navel gazing I am.
So they're all consulting the same
But
article.
it's important. It's not a fad that's going to go away. It's what is the next steps in the next direction.
Yeah, I think so. And I think people are starting to realize too that our viewers are important. I think they've kind of snubbed them a little bit.
You know, we're not hearing so much of that anymore.
No,
It's quieting down. Now they're kind of like, what are these
guys doing?
About your viewers?
I think so too. I think that, especially being out there last week and talking to people, it's, the concern, at least the guys I talked to is, well, do you think that let's call it the do-it-yourself market is good, that has legs? And I said, that's the market that does have legs. I mean, it's you don't have to have everyone do it to have a significant business, to have a significant change in the, in the environment and the amount of people driving the vehicles. Like you said, if we could just get 10% of the people to do 20% of the driving, we'd make a big change. That'd be a sea change. And I think that people are realizing that this is a bigger market than people thought. That our particular market.
It is in a more durable market, but it's not easy to get a handle on.
No, because they're everywhere.
See, now I'm not going to be drawn into predictions of the size of the DIY market. It's in flux.
Yes.
And immaterial to what it's going to be.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
So it's not from fear or from it being weenie. I'm pretty confident of it. I think it's actually where a lot of neat things are going to happen. I don't think the OEMs, I never did think they were going to lead this.
No. But maybe take credit for it someday.
Oh, undoubtedly.
Sure of that.
At
yeah.
the end of the day, General Motors, like AT&T and Microsoft, invented the internet. Similarly, General Motors and Renault will have invented the electric car.
Invented the electric car.
Now, in the many slip twixt the cup and the lip we have yet to face, they're an easy area to keep a grip on because you can simply read their press releases.
Right.
Well, now that you've done that for 2 years, and you see that's kind of like choking a Jello snake in a pool of Wesson oil. The cure for a bad press release being another press
Yeah,
release.
just shoot out another one, yeah.
How many electric cars has Volkswagen announced in the last 2 years?
Oh, God, dozens.
They don't have any.
No, dozens.
They announce them every week.
And every one that they announce, I like. You know?
No, I really think VW could probably do this better than
I'd like to
anybody.
see them do one.
But
they just won't
but
pull the trigger.
They're not going to actually.
No, they just
do
won't
it.
pull the trigger.
They're just going to send out photos of them forever. And so that's easy pickings, except none of it's all a little ethereal and it's not true. The real market and the other end of it is the people buying the Leafs and the Volts are the same guys that are building the cars in their garage.
Oh, yeah, we have a lot of our viewers have.
The Volt that burned down in Connecticut was next to a Suzuki Samurai. The guy had lead acid batteries.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
For years.
They tried to blame the Samurai too.
One of our viewers that constantly calls me to task, the Leaf is really a great car, has got it parked next to his Bug-Eye Sprite.
Oh, that's right.
He was at the electric vehicle conversion convention.
Yeah, the guy from
so
IBM.
We see this over and over, and the market that you're going to get initially, the early adopters, and the guys in the garage building the electric cars are the same guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that is the low-hanging fruit. Yeah, absolutely.
They are the low-hanging fruit. I've been talking about the low-hanging fruit for a year and a half. That's who the low-hanging fruit always was.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
And nothing's changed here, except I think it's about to get bigger, and I think it's about to get stronger. I think there's an awful lot of people who have bills scratched out on napkins, but thought, well, maybe I'll get a Leaf or a Volt, or we'll see how this shakes out. And they've been waiting for a year.
They've been waiting, yeah, because they're not ready.
And eventually it's going to dawn on them, well, the same thing. I can go to my own damn garage, build my own
I
damn
can get
car.
one quicker. Yeah.
And I can get it quicker, and I can do it for less money than what they're asking.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, going to be an important part of it. I have for some time. And I think the world is shifting our direction right at this moment.
I believe so.
And as you see, the Internels, A123s, Fiskars, Codas, Apteras, Crater, and Burn, is that the end of the electric car? No, there are some people that are very enthusiastic about electric cars, us among them.
Yes.
And they're not going to cease. They're going to keep building cars, driving cars, buying cars, and is it going to take over the gasoline market this year? Is this the year of the electric car? No.
No,
The internet didn't happen that way, guys.
No, I know.
It did not happen overnight. It took 20 years for us to hammer this out. It was like crawling through piss, blood, and razor blades on your hands and knees.
Yeah, it didn't happen.
For 15 years, and suddenly you're an overnight success story. Well, that's the way things.
That's right.
That's the way things happen in my world, and we're looking at 10 or 12 years of fairly gruesome effort,
Yeah.
and then I think a substantial inroad to 40 or 50% of the automobiles being electric.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too.
And it will flash over at the end after we get it to the tipping point.
Yeah.
But you'll be able to buy a gasoline car for the rest of our lives.
Oh yeah.
There's nothing threatened here.
No.
In fact, it's all good news.
Yeah, it'll make it
Electric
better
car
for
is
people
going
that want to drive gas.
take the
Take some
gasoline
pressure
off the
it, yeah.
margin.
Yeah, it'll take some pressure off the gasoline.
And you'll be able to get gasoline for your car at a much more reasonable price in the future, I believe, if we can get this done. So it's all about options and having plenty of them, but a future of clean, quiet, efficient vehicles. How's that a bad thing?
No, it can't be at all.
Well, we're just going to keep our head down until it happens, and we want you all to join us and be part of it. Stay with us. We'll talk some more about this maybe about a week from
Maybe
now.
about a week from now.
Maybe next week we'll do this again. Depends on how it goes in the lab.
That's right.
We'll see you all later.
See you.